Hello and welcome to Couple of Instigators. I am so excited today. I have Victoria Arnstein, comic from New York City, which I have a million questions because I'm going down there. And I found her. I found you on Facebook, right, Victoria? Because I started looking. I joined a bunch of New York City Facebook groups where people post open mics because I was on a mission to find open mics to go to because it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I have had some pretty scary open mics that I've hit up when I've traveled because I really don't know anybody. So just through the Facebook groups, I'll end up at an open mic in front of like 50 of the scariest bikers on Daytona. Yeah. I've gone to open mics in cities where they've literally pat me down on the way in for weapons.
Wow.
So there you go. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm really excited to have found you.
Oh,
and the fact that we are females and we are not 25 makes it.
You're my first lesbian date.
Yeah, so we're going to be dating while I'm in the city. Yes, we are going to be going to, because a lot of my girlfriend's not coming with me. And I can understand because I'm going to visit my kid, but I'm also, when I'm in the city alone, I like to do all the comedy. I want to go to the cellar. I want to hit the stand.
My husband doesn't do any of that with me. He's
like, they're over it.
Yeah, do your thing. Oh, he was always over it. He just told me I was funny and I should do it, but he didn't really. I'd like to just backtrack my story.
Yes, let's start with your story.
Oh, just because I wanted to give you a little background.
Yes.
And we're not talking about me the whole time. We can talk about you too.
No.
This was the whole thing where it started for me. I'm from a very small Jewish community in Brooklyn. And it's Middle Eastern Jews, so they have their own, community. And, we went to Hebrew school. We only knew Brooklyn and then Manhattan. We didn't even go explore Brooklyn. We didn't know other parts of Brooklyn. Till today, people are like, Bensonhurst? I'm like, no. I just knew my area and then I went to the city. So I was always interested in comedy, but dare I even try to do comedy, I won't get married. It was all about getting married at 18 and having kids.
Yeah.
Comedy, what are you dirty? What is that? You're not going to do, no one will marry you. And that's really the truth. So I wanted it. It was like that movie or Netflix, Orthodox or Unorthodox, but not that extreme, because I'm modern. But I was very, very interested. I had such a sense of humor. I used to go to comedy clubs after. I used to work in a jewelry store, and right afterwards I would go by myself and sit by myself and just watch every HBO special they had, Howie Mandel, the works, Stephen Wright, Wendy Liebman. Then I saw Wendy Liebman in person. I was like, oh my God. I remember going to the comic strip. And I put on a bachelorette party for my sister-in-law. And Wendy Liebman came on. Danny Cohen came on. And Danny was from my community. And I was like, and he's like, Vicky saw me in the audience. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And it was the first time I even heard someone was gay in my community. We didn't even know about gay. And here he was. And I was all of 26 years old. And he was doing comedy. Well, years went by. I got married. I had kids. And then my husband had no idea I wanted to even do this. I just pushed it down. I was a theater major. I did theater. I was doing musical theater and stuff like that. So the stage didn't scare me, but I loved that entertaining thing. And I did funny plays and whatever.
Did you go to, is that what you went to college for, Victoria?
I didn't go to college. I took classes. After my father died, I had to go to work. So I didn't have time.
Right.
I had to get serious.
So you were always interested in like the arts as far as like theater and stand up and sketch.
Go the Broadway route. Yeah, I'm a singer. So I was going to go. I used
to
plays in my community. And even when I didn't want to, they're like, you're the star again. I'm like, I don't want to do it. They're like, you're doing it. I'm like, okay. So then I was always that person. So ended up going to just one day, my husband said, years after 3 kids and everything, he goes, you're really funny. You should take a comedy class. I went, what? And I Googled it right away. And I was like, oh my God, I got to do this.
How old were you?
I would say 2012, I was already 42.
So you were,
yeah, I'm 51.
yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah, so I ended up going. Corey Kahaney had a class. There were 15 comics that were amateurs, so I didn't really learn anything. I was just watching people, and I was like, okay, there's a graduation class. They wanted to bring people. I'm like, I'm not bringing anybody to see me. There's no way. It was at Gotham. And I ended up going with my husband, but my husband ended up giving me a hard time. Like, he was very nervous. He did not want to see me. He didn't want to see me up there. You know, he was like very, very nervous about it. And I was like, he was giving me like a hard time, and I was like almost crying before I went. So I'm at Gotham, and there's 250 people in the audience or something like that. And are you guys there?
Yeah.
Oh, because I saw a blank screen.
No.
So I get up on stage, and I only wrote jokes like what happened to me at the airport and on my cruise that I had just gone on. And, you know, I was like, like jokes like, I'll never go on a cruise again unless it's Tom Cruise. I'll go on Tom Cruise, you know.
Yeah.
You know, like, but that's how I talk to my friends.
Right.
What I did was like how you talk at parties, you know, where you have like Mrs. Maisel, people gathered around like you.
Yeah.
So I'm naturally funny because my community is naturally funny. So it's like, I'm not really a god in my community. I'm exactly like that. So here I am just like talking like a Brooklyn Jew, and it's working. I get off the stage. My husband texted me. That's when texting first came out. Well, you didn't suck. I'm like, I need a hug. So then I get off the ramp, and I see a tall guy, blonde guy. And he goes, is that your first time up there? So I said, yeah, does it show? He says, no, you're a natural. You should definitely keep doing this. And then he gets on, and he's crushing. And I looked him up. I said, who's this Jim Gaffigan guy? He's very good.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome.
And I told me to keep going. So I did a couple of shows. I won a contest early on. I was able to go without bringing people. And then I moved to Hawaii.
Yeah. What brought you to Hawaii?
So my husband is an athlete, and he used to do 100-mile races, and they had a 100-mile race there. He says, just come with me, you know, last minute, it was a decision to go. We fell in love with it. He used to do Ironman also. They have the championship Ironman there. So I'm like, all right, let me go with you. And I was a swimmer, and I was loving the ocean. I was like, we need to move here.
Yeah.
I mean, a Jew from Brooklyn in Hawaii is a joke in of itself. So we moved there, and 3 years, I didn't do a stitch of comedy. And then one day I saw this group doing comedy, and I was like, they had a contest. It wasn't like the regular show. It was at another venue. They don't have a comedy club out there. They have a bar that they do it at every single time with a stage. So it's a clique. And they said, and I asked them, like, I saw there was a New York comic. I'm like, you're from New York and you're doing this? I thought it was locals, like can't touch their pigeon, their whatever the hell they're talking about. And I ended up calling the guy. He's like, yeah, just come to my open mic. It's at like 10 o'clock after the show or something. I thought it was at 8 o'clock. So I'm all dressed up and waiting to go because I dress for comedy. You know, I get into it. And he's like, yeah, you're on at like 10 o'clock. 3 people were in the audience. I'm doing my Jewish jokes from Brooklyn. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this girl on the stage? Can I curse?
No,
anyway,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so I'm like, that sucked because I brought a friend. Now I'm the type of person to fill seats, even if I'm getting paid to be on, even if I'm a headliner, I'll grab people off the street. I'm like, come on, we're having a show, you know, I don't care. So I ended up bringing my friend with me. She's like, wow, you really have guts. I'm like, I don't want to have guts. The stage doesn't scare me. Was it funny? She's like, no, it's really good. I'm like, oh God. So then I did another open mic about a couple of months later. And then they had one on a prime time at 8 o'clock. And I remember that they said, they sent out like a newsletter or an email. And I got this thing where I was like, you know what? I haven't done comedy in so long, like good comedy. And I won a contest in my first 3 weeks, also like you. So I'm writing the jokes, I'm tightening up the 7 minutes, right? I get on stage, I crush it. I get off the stage, and there were judges. There was some sort of little contest there too. There were judges. I get off the stage, and I got a text while I was there. Do you want to be a feature next week, a paid feature?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna say no.
Great.
I ended up getting this gig every other week. I was doing comedy for a few different venues, a few different whatever. There was one venue that stopped altogether. I didn't know why. I didn't know what it was, but then I found out from another comedian who was half Jewish, that he was making fun of him being Jewish. And I said, that's the reason. Why do you ever fire anybody? Why do you not? So it was a production company using his restaurant. And he just one day said, I don't want her in there anymore. And one day I came and I wanted to just watch my friends at least and get a drink. I was going to pay for a drink. She can't come in. I couldn't come in through the door. I couldn't walk into the door. That was my first brush of anti-Semitism in Hawaii. Politically speaking, on the Hawaii comedian page, I was writing things that people didn't like. Like my preference of like, I'm pro-Israel. They were not happy, but they were pro-Palestine, a lot of them, or, or you said something nice about Trump. I'm like, well, I like that he's for Israel. I like that. A booker said right after that, she wrote to me on text. She goes, you're not in my shows anymore, and we're not going to have you. You're embarrassing. I said, okay, yeah, because I said Trump was good for Israel. That's all she had to hear. So I started producing my own shows.
But you are Jewish. Why would you?
Right, but they didn't.
I know that's true. Why would you not be for Israel, right?
Right, but they didn't care. Like even Bella Hadid, I understand why she's for Palestinian, because she's Palestinian. I get it. I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, but here's the, I barely went to high school, and I have discussed this before. I have no knowledge of history or religion, and
I have a hard time.
It's terrible.
It's better.
But you know what though? But I've said this on every time though. I really wish I had been able to have been taught about other religions, just the basics. I think that we all need to learn the basics of it all. So as far as like the Jewish, the Israeli against the, I don't understand it. Right. I'm clueless. I'm I don't even. I'm Italian.
All you have to know is that Israel is right and Palestine's wrong.
Okay. No, but hey, you know what?
I'll explain it to you one day.
Yeah.
From my point of view.
Yes, and that's fine. Now is not the time exactly.
No, and I'm not going to at all. But anyway, so that was my first brush of like, wow, you know what I'm going to do with this pain? I'm going to start my own shows. And you know what? They were better than hers. So now I had my own shows. That's when I started producing. Then I went through this period where my husband and I was separated, and I was moving back to New York. We were going to try to make it work in New York. But we were still separated, and I'm friends with the owner of Broadway Comedy Club through Facebook, and he knows people that I know in Brooklyn and all that stuff. But he was like, "You're a hustler. I think you would be really good fit for this club. You want to produce shows here." And then I started producing shows, and they really took off. And my open mics, I was doing 4 a week over there, and that's when it started to take off for me. And then the pandemic hit, and
well. Right. And I mean, me and you touched a little bit, on our little chat before I started recording, that I just, started hosting, a couple shows. I find hosting so hard. I mean,
well, you got to memorize names and you got to introduce them. That's the hard part for me. My memory is the hard part for me because I suck with names altogether.
I'm terrible.
How to pronounce them when I host.
It's hard to pronounce. I'm like, why does your name have to be Nama?
It's crazy. I know it. It's so hard. And but not just that, but for me, it was getting the energy up, and then the whole like hosting, like who's celebrating a birthday, just the bullshitting. I don't do crowd work because I'm not comfortable yet. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of new at comedy, yet alone to do crowd work for me.
You have to be very quick. You have to be very, very quick. Like, but if you notice it, and I've been watching, I go to a lot of clubs. I frequent the clubs. When I got back here, I'd never gone to the Cellar before that. And then I was going every week. And I was going as a patron. I was buying the